Millionaire cries upon seeing a boy begging in the rain with two twin babies. What she did. The New York City rain mercilessly punished the asphalt of the FDR Drive on that gray Thursday afternoon. Sarah Jennings watched through the armored window of her Range Rover as the red tail lights of cars sat motionless in traffic, drumming her impatient fingers on the Italian leather of the seat. At 42, she had built a business empire few men could match, but at that moment, she felt like just another prisoner of Manhattan's urban chaos. "Ms. Jennings, it will be at least an hour before we get to the Upper East Side," murmured D.M. James, her driver of 10 years, glancing at his boss's angular face in the rearview mirror. "This accident on the bridge, it doesn't matter," she replied curtly, her gaze fixed on the window. The meeting on Park Avenue had been exhausting, another multi-million-dollar merger to expand Jennings' construction. Numbers, contracts, signatures, life as usual. That's when she saw him. On the median strip, barely sheltered by a scrawny tree, a thin boy of perhaps 13 was hunched over two small bundles. Barefoot, his drenched clothes clinging to his emaciated body, he was using his own t-shirt to cover two tiny creatures whimpering softly. The boy looked desperately at the passing cars, as if pleading for a miracle. Sarah felt a strange tightness in her chest. For an instant, that grotesque scene of urban abandonment transported her to an unknown place within herself. "James, stop the car." "Excuse me, ma'am. I said stop the car. Now. Miss Jennings, with all due respect, it's not safe." "Stop the car." The Range Rover glided to the shoulder with a sigh of its brakes. Sarah opened the door before the vehicle had even come to a complete stop, feeling the icy rain soak her imported silk suit. Her Louboutin heels sank into the mud as she walked determinedly toward the median. The boy saw her approach and instinctively hugged the babies tighter, his dark eyes shining with fear and mistrust. "Hey you," she called out, trying to soften her naturally authoritative voice. "Are you okay?" Alex, though she didn't yet know his name, looked at her with the suspicion of someone who had learned early on that well-dressed adults rarely brought good news. But there was something different about this elegant woman approaching in the rain, seemingly indifferent to the fact that she was ruining clothes that cost more than he would see in his entire life. "Are the little girls yours?" Sarah asked, crouching in the mud without a care for the dirt. "Yes," Alex lied instinctively, his voice trembling with cold and fear. "They're my daughters." Sarah looked at the two babies in the boy's trembling arms. They must have been only a few months old, their small faces wrinkled from the cold, wrapped in rags that were once white. But it was when one of the babies opened her eyes that Sarah felt the world spin beneath her feet. Those eyes were green, a rare, almost emerald green that she knew intimately. The same eyes as Robert. "What's your name?" she whispered, trying to control the voice that threatened to break. "Alex." "And them?" The boy hesitated, as if calculating the risks of revealing personal information. "Lucy and Sophie." Sarah extended her hand slowly, like someone approaching a wounded animal. "Alex, you're all freezing and hungry. How about you come with me to a warm, dry place?" Alex's eyes narrowed. "Are you going to call the police?" "No," Sarah answered, surprised by her own sincerity. "I just want to help." Something in her tone, perhaps a vulnerability she herself didn't recognize, made Alex hesitate. The twins were visibly shivering now, and he knew they wouldn't survive another night on the street. "Do you promise?" he whispered. "I promise." Alex stood up slowly, the babies heavy in his thin arms. Sarah helped him, feeling for the first time the fragility of those small lives. As they walked toward the Range Rover, James watched them in the rearview mirror with clear apprehension. In the 10 years he had worked for Sarah, he had never seen her act so impulsively. "James, let's go home and call Dr. Miller. Tell him it's an emergency." As the car glided through the wet avenues toward the Upper East Side, Sarah watched the 3 orphans in the seat beside her. Alex kept his eyes fixed on the window, as if memorizing every detail of the city that had cast him out, while the twins finally fell asleep in his arms. But it was the green eyes of the little girls that Sarah couldn't stop thinking about. Those eyes she knew so well, that had loved and betrayed her, that had haunted her for 3 years, ever since Robert's death. What had Robert hidden from her? And why had fate placed these children in her path on this particular day? As the lights of her neighborhood drew closer, Sarah had no idea that her life was about to change forever. The private, gated community on the Upper East Side stood like a fortress of marble and glass against the dark New York sky. Alex had never seen anything like it. electronic gates, uniformed security guards, gardens that looked like they were straight out of a magazine. When the Range Rover swept up the circular driveway of Sarah's mansion, his eyes widened. "Oh my God," he whispered, momentarily forgetting to maintain his distrustful posture. Sarah noticed the boy's involuntary admiration and felt a strange pang in her chest. When was the last time someone had looked at her home with anything other than envy or calculated interest? "Welcome to my home," she said softly, as James opened the door. The mansion's entrance was dominated by a baccarat crystal chandelier that cast rainbows on the travertine marble walls. Alex hesitated on the threshold, his bare feet still caked with mud, holding the twins as if they were his only treasures. "You can come in," Sarah encouraged him. "This is your home now." "Our home," Alex repeated, as if the words were in a foreign language. Before Sarah could answer, Dr. Miller arrived, a middle-aged man with graying hair and steady hands who had been looking after the Jennings family's health for 20 years. He examined Alex and the twins in the spacious living room, his professional eyes taking in every detail. "The girls are malnourished, but stable," he finally announced. "They need proper nutrition, vitamins, and a lot of rest." "How long were you on the street?" Alex looked down. "A few weeks. And before that?" "We were living in the courtyard of St. Jerome's Parish in the Bronx. Father Javier let us sleep there, but he was transferred." Sarah felt her heart sink. A church. These children had survived on the charity of a priest. "How did you manage to care for them alone?" Dr. Miller asked kindly. "Mrs. Conception from the corner bodega gave me powdered milk sometimes, and I begged on the street. For them, you know, not for me." Alex's voice trembled slightly on the last sentence, revealing for the first time the vulnerability behind his tough mask. Sarah stood up abruptly. "Dr. Miller, what do they need now?" "A warm bath, dry clothes, light and gradual feeding, and a lot of love," he added, looking at Sarah's tense expression. "They've been through trauma. They'll need time to trust again." 2 hours later, the silent mansion had been transformed. Alex emerged from the shower in clothes borrowed from James, far too big but clean and dry. The twins had been gently bathed by Mrs. Davis and the housekeeper, and were now sleeping in makeshift cribs made of cushions and soft blankets. Sarah watched Alex devour a plate of lentil soup as if it were the last meal of his life. "When was the last time you ate?" she asked. "Yesterday, or the day before, I don't remember." "And the girls?" "I got a little milk yesterday morning, but it was almost gone." Sarah felt a surge of anger, not at Alex but at a world that allowed children to go hungry while she wasted food at corporate dinners. "Alex," she said softly, sitting down at the table, "I need you to be honest with me. Are the girls really your daughters?" The boy stopped eating, his spoon suspended in midair. For a long moment, only the sound of the rain broke the silence. "No," he finally whispered. "They're my sisters." "Sisters?" "Yeah. Same mom, same dad. But I took care of them. I've always taken care of them. Where are your parents?" Alex closed his eyes, as if the question caused him physical pain. "My mom, Adriana. She died when they were born, at Lincoln Hospital. Complications from childbirth," the nurse said. "And your father?" He used to visit sometimes, on weekends, but after Mom died, he stopped coming. "I guess it was hard for him to see us without her." Sarah felt the blood freeze in her veins. "What was your father like, Alex?" "Tall, dark hair, and he had green eyes, just like the girls. He always said we were special because of those eyes." The plate slipped from Sarah's hands, shattering into 1,000 pieces on the marble floor. Alex flinched, startled. "I'm sorry. I'll clean it up. I'll clean it up." "No," Sarah whispered, more to herself than to him. "It wasn't your fault. Robert. It had to be Robert. The green eyes, the height, the dark hair, the sporadic weekend visits, right when he would say he was going to handle some business or visit clients." "Alex," she managed to say in a controlled voice, "what was your father's full name?" "Robert. Robert Jennings." Sarah's world silently crumbled around her. Her husband, the man she had loved for 15 years, who had comforted her through years of failed fertility treatments, who had died in her arms 3 years ago, had kept a secret family. And now that family was at her table, eating her food, sleeping under her roof. "Miss Jennings?" Alex called, concerned. "Are you okay? You've gone very pale." Sarah forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, sweetie. Just tired." But inside, 1,000 questions swirled in her mind like a hurricane. How long had Robert maintained this double life? How many lies had he told her? And why? Why had he never mentioned he had children? Looking at Alex, who watched her with worried eyes, Sarah realized her life had just become complicated in a way she could never have imagined. But there was something else, a strange, unfamiliar feeling growing in her chest as she looked at the brave boy who had cared for his sisters against all odds. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't feel completely alone. Robert's study remained exactly as he had left it 3 years ago. Sarah had avoided the room like an open wound, preferring to keep her memories of her husband intact. But now, in the stillness of the early morning, she stood before the mahogany desk, searching for answers she was afraid to find. Her hands trembled as she opened one drawer after another. Business contracts, travel photos, bank statements. Nothing out of the ordinary, until her fingers touched a yellowed envelope hidden at the bottom of the lowest drawer. "My love, Robert," read the neat handwriting on the first letter. "I miss you every day. Alex asks when Daddy is coming back, and I don't know what to tell him. The twins are growing so fast, and Lucy already smiles when she sees your picture." Sarah's stomach churned. There it was, irrefutable proof, a loving correspondence between her husband and a woman named Adriana, the mother of his 3 children. Each letter was a stab wound. Robert talking about Alex's first steps, the twins' pregnancy, plans to tell Sarah everything when the time was right, a time that never came. But what shocked her most were Adriana's words. She never asked for money, never threatened to expose the relationship, just a woman in love patiently waiting for the man she loved to choose his real family. "I know you love your wife," one of the last letters read, "but these children are yours too. They deserve to know their father. Please, Robert, find the courage to tell the truth, for them." Sarah closed her eyes and silent tears streamed down her face. Robert had died in a car accident 3 years ago, taking his secrets with him. And now she was discovering that while they were undergoing painful and expensive fertility treatments at a top clinic, he already had 3 children growing up in the Bronx. The next morning, she called her private investigator. "Mr. Thompson, I need you to investigate someone. Adriana Evans, probably a teacher, lived in the Bronx area. She had 3 children with a man named Robert Jennings." The investigator, accustomed to the unusual requests of Manhattan's elite, asked no unnecessary questions. "How much time do I have?" "I want everything by tomorrow, everything." While she waited for the results, Sarah watched Alex play with the twins in the garden. The boy had gained weight in just 2 days of good food, and his smile was beginning to appear more frequently. The girls also seemed more alert, their green eyes, Robert's eyes, following their older brother's every move. "Miss Jennings?" Alex approached hesitantly. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did you know my dad?" The question hit her like a punch. Alex watched her with that sharp intelligence that a lack of formal education had failed to diminish. "Why do you ask? You got really weird when I said his name, and there are some pictures in this house of a man who looks like him." Sarah followed Alex's gaze to the portrait of Robert on the living room wall. Even after 3 years, she hadn't been able to take down her husband's photos. "Alex," she said carefully, "your father was my husband." The boy stood motionless, processing the information. "So you're the other family Mom talked about." "The other family?" "Yeah. Mom always said Dad had another family, an important family, and that's why he couldn't be with us all the time. She never got mad. She said love was for sharing, not for keeping all to yourself." Sarah felt something break inside her. Adriana knew of her existence, and yet had never tried to destroy her marriage. What kind of woman did that? What kind of love was capable of such generosity? That afternoon, Mr. Thompson brought her his report. "Adriana Evans, 28 when she died," he read from his notes. "Teacher at PS 85 in the Bronx, respected by colleagues and students, lived in a simple apartment with her son Alex, from a previous relationship, never married, died from complications during the twins' birth at Lincoln Hospital. And financially, she lived on her teacher's salary, about $55,000 a year, never received regular child support or financial aid, although there are records of sporadic deposits into her account, always small amounts, between $200 and $500. Sarah closed her eyes. Robert gave Adriana less money in a year than she spent on a single handbag. "Anything else?" "Yes. Neighbors describe her as a dedicated woman who cared for the boy alone and worked tirelessly. She never spoke ill of the girl's father, not even when he didn't show up for weeks. She always said he would come back when he could." That night, Sarah went up to the room where Alex was sleeping. The boy was awake, looking out the window at the city lights. "Alex," "Can I come in?" "Sure, Miss Jennings." She sat on the edge of the bed. "I want you to know, I'm so sorry, truly. If I had known you existed, what would you have done?" The question caught her off guard. What would she have done? Would she have left Robert? Accepted the existence of the other family? Fought for the man she loved? "I don't know," she admitted honestly. "But I know one thing. You are my family now. You're all that's left of Robert, and I'm not going to abandon you." Alex looked at her with those dark eyes, so serious for a 13-year-old boy. "Do you promise? Because I've been abandoned once already, and I don't want the girls to go through that." "I promise you, Alex, in memory of your mother and in memory of Robert. You are my children now." It was the first time Alex had cried since she found him in the rain, and as she comforted the boy who had carried the weight of the world on his thin shoulders, Sarah realized she was making the first truly important promise of her life. But there was still one last piece of the puzzle she needed to confirm. The next day, she would take samples from the twins for a DNA test, because deep down, she already knew the truth. The clinical analysis lab in Soho was known for its discretion and precision. Sarah had chosen the location strategically, far from her social circles on the Upper East Side, where any gossip could spread like wildfire. She carried 2 small vials, one with saliva from the twins, another with strands of Robert's hair she had kept as a memento. "Results in 48 hours, the technician assured her, noticing the evident tension on the elegant woman's face. 2 of the longest 48 hours of Sarah's life. She tried to maintain her routine, meetings at the construction company, financial reports, client calls, but her mind was constantly torn between her work and the 3 children who had turned her silent mansion into something resembling a home. Alex was adapting surprisingly well. The first morning, he had woken up at 5, sitting rigidly in bed like a soldier on high alert. When Sarah asked him why, he explained that he always woke up early to check if the twins were okay. "On the street, you can't sleep deeply," he explained simply. "You always have to be watching." The vulnerability behind those words broke Sarah's heart. A 13-year-old boy should never have to sleep with one eye open. Lucy and Sophie also showed signs of trauma. They cried intensely whenever Alex was out of sight and only calmed down when their brother returned. The bond between the 3 was deep and protective, a family unit forged by survival. "They only trust me," Alex explained when Sarah tried to feed one of the twins and the baby rejected the bottle. "Since they were born, I'm all they've had." On the afternoon of the second day, the phone rang. "Miss Jennings, the results are ready." Sarah drove to the lab alone, her hands trembling on the Range Rover's steering wheel. A part of her still hoped it was all a cosmic mistake, that these children were just orphans with a cruel genetic coincidence. 99.98% compatibility, the doctor announced, handing her the official report. "Without a shadow of a doubt, Mr. Robert Jennings is the biological father of the 2 girls." Sarah stared at the numbers on the page, the reality finally solidifying in black and white. Robert had lied to her for years. While she underwent painful treatments, hormone injections, and the monthly humiliation of another negative pregnancy test, he had children growing up just a few miles away. "Ma'am?" the doctor asked, concerned by Sarah's sudden pallor. "Are you all right?" "Yes," Sarah lied, putting the report in her purse. "Thank you." During the drive home, memories flooded her like a breaking dam. Robert arriving late on weekends, always with excuses about difficult clients or projects needing personal supervision. Him cancelling romantic trips because urgent problems came up. The nights he seemed distant, lost in thoughts she assumed were about the company. Now she knew the truth. He was thinking about Adriana, about Alex, about the twins growing up without knowing their father. When she got home, she found Alex in the garden, pushing the twins in makeshift strollers made from cardboard boxes. The boy had created an ingenious system to entertain his sisters, stacking cushions to form obstacles and singing nursery rhymes he had learned from Adriana. "Look, Lucy, the sparrow." He pointed to a bird on the branch of an apple tree, "just like the one Mom used to show you from the apartment window." Sarah stopped at the door, watching the scene. There was so much love there, a pure, innocent love that not even the brutality of the streets had managed to corrupt. Alex loved those girls with a devotion she had rarely seen, even among biological parents. "Alex?" she called softly. The boy turned, and something in her expression must have alerted him. Did something happen? Sarah sat on the grass, not caring about her silk dress. "I have to tell you something. About your father." "About Robert." Alex left the strollers and came closer, sitting beside her with the twins in his lap. "He was my husband, Robert Jennings, and I just confirmed that you are his children. Confirmed how? A DNA test, a scientific analysis that proves kinship. Alex was silent for a long moment, processing the information. So you are my stepchildren, legally, officially, my husband's children. So what now? Are you going to kick us out? The question was asked in such a small, fear-filled voice that Sarah felt her heart break. Kick you out? Alex, your family, real family. But you were married to him first. We're the children of his betrayal. Sarah pulled the boy towards her, surprised by the maternal impulse that washed over her. No, you are not children of betrayal. You are children of love. Maybe a complicated, confusing love, but love nonetheless. And Robert may have made wrong choices, but I know one thing. He loved you. The letters your mother wrote to him prove it. You read the letters. I read them. And I discovered that your mother was an extraordinary woman. She knew about me. She knew Robert was married, but she never tried to destroy our marriage. She loved him in a way I'm not even sure I would be capable of. Alex looked at the twins who had fallen asleep in his arms. Mum always said that true love wants what's best for the person, even if it hurts you. She was right. So now what? What's going to happen to us? Sarah took a deep breath, making the most important decision of her life. Now I'm going to do what should have been done a long time ago. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to give you everything Robert should have given you. Love, security, education, a future. I'm going to be the mother you deserve. Do you promise? Even knowing that we're not your blood? Alex, Sarah said, looking into the boy's dark eyes, family isn't about blood. It's about choice. And I choose you. Every day for the rest of my life, I choose you. For the first time since they met, Alex gave a full, genuine smile. Can I call you Mum? The word hit Sarah like a lightning bolt. Mum. At 42, after years of failed attempts, she would finally be a mother. You can, my son. Of course you can. And as she hugged the 3 children in the mansion's garden, Sarah realized that her life had, at last, truly begun. But she had no idea of the battles that were yet to come. Monday dawned gray over New York as Sarah headed to the office of Mr. Augustine Torres, the city's most prestigious family lawyer. The building on Park Avenue exuded power and discretion, exactly what she needed for what she was about to do. Sarah, my dear, Mr. Torres rose from his immense jacaranda desk, his arms open in a warm embrace. They had known each other for 15 years, since the lawyer had handled the paperwork for her wedding to Robert. I was so sorry to hear about Robert's passing. He was an exceptional man. Thank you, Augustine. And it's precisely about Robert that I need to talk. She told him the whole story, the encounter in the rain, the discovery of the letters, the DNA test. Mr. Torres listened in silence, taking precise notes on a letter-headed pad. I see, he said finally. And you want to officially adopt the 3 children? I do, but I need to know the risks. Robert's family, will they try to stop it? The lawyer's face darkened. Edward Jennings has always been ambitious. With Robert gone and you childless, he probably expected to inherit control of the company over time. The arrival of these children changes everything. How does it change everything? Well, if you officially adopt the children, they become your legal heirs. That includes the shares in the construction company, the real estate, the financial investments. We're talking about an estate of approximately $300 million. Sarah hadn't thought about the financial aspect. For her, the adoption was about love, family, redemption. But now she realized that others would only see numbers. Do you think they'll object? Without a doubt. Edward has 2 sons of his own, your nephews. They've always expected a portion of the Jennings inheritance to come to them. They'll claim you're being emotionally manipulated, maybe even question your mental health. My mental health. It's a common tactic in disputed inheritance cases. A wealthy, middle-aged widow who adopts street orphans. It's not hard to build a narrative of emotional instability. Sarah felt a surge of anger. Those children are Robert's. They have a right to know their father, even posthumously. I completely agree, and we will fight for that right. But I need you to be prepared for a long and very public legal battle. Public? Sarah, you are one of the most influential businesswomen in New York. When the media discovers that Robert Jennings' widow has adopted her husband's secret children, it will be front-page news. Sarah's heart raced. She had carefully built her professional reputation over the years. Such exposure could destroy not only her personal image, but also harm the construction company. Does that change anything? Mr. Torres asked, seeing the hesitation in her eyes. Sarah thought of Alex waking up at 5 in the morning to check on his sisters. She thought of the twins, with those green eyes that were the only inheritance Robert had left them. She thought of Adriana, loving Robert even knowing she would never be the priority in his life. "No," she said firmly. "It changes nothing. I want to proceed with the adoption. Then let's start the paperwork today." The following afternoon, Sarah took Alex on an expedition to Bergdorf Goodman on 5th Avenue. The boy had never been inside a department store, and his reaction to each illuminated display was a mixture of wonder and suspicion. "Why are we here?" he asked as they passed through the luxury goods floor. "You're starting at a new school on Monday. You need a uniform, school supplies, proper clothes." "What school?" "The Dalton School." Alex stopped walking. "Dalton? That fancy school you see on TV? It's one of the best schools in New York. You're smart, Alex. You deserve the best education money can buy. But what if I can't keep up? What if the other students don't like me?" Sarah knelt in front of him, right there in the middle of the crowded department store aisle. "Alex, you survived on the streets taking care of 2 babies. You are stronger and braver than any rich kid you'll meet at that school, and if someone doesn't like you, that's their problem. But I don't talk right, I don't know how to use a fork properly, I've never been on a plane. All of that can be learned. What can't be learned is to have a heart like yours." They bought 3 complete uniforms, enough school supplies for an army, and casual clothes that transformed Alex from a street kid into a middle-class teenager. When he looked at himself in the store's mirror, he barely recognized himself. "Is that me?" he whispered, touching the navy blue polo shirt. "That's you, Alex Jennings." "Jennings? Well, you're going to be officially adopted. You'll have the family name." Alex's eyes filled with tears. "Alex Jennings, Sarah's son. Sarah's and Robert's son. You have a right to both names." That night, as she helped Alex organize his new school supplies, Sarah realized she was genuinely excited. It had been years since she had felt excitement for anything. The company ran on autopilot. Her social life was a series of empty engagements, her days repeated in a purposeless routine. Now, for the first time since Robert's death, she had something worth waking up for in the morning. "Sarah?" Alex called from the twins' room, where he was checking if they were sleeping well. "Yes? Thank you. For everything. My mom, Adriana, always said that one day someone would take good care of us. I think she meant you." Sarah felt her eyes burn. "Your mother was a wise woman." "She was. And she would have liked you." "How can you be so sure?" "Because you love us like she loved us. For real. Without wanting anything in return." As she watched the boy prepare for the first night he would sleep soundly, without worrying about his sister's safety, Sarah knew she was making the right decision. It didn't matter what the Jennings family did. It didn't matter what the media said. It didn't matter if society judged her as crazy or manipulated. These children were her family now, and she would fight for them tooth and nail. The war was about to begin. The black Range Rover pulled up to the circular driveway of the mansion on a rainy Wednesday in March. Sarah watched from her office window as Edward Jennings got out of the vehicle, followed by his sons Richard and Frederick, her nephews-in-law. The trio walked with the characteristic arrogance of the Jennings family, as if they owned the world. Sarah took a deep breath and went down to receive them in the main living room. Edward, at 58, maintained the imposing posture that had made him one of New York's most feared developers before Robert took control of the family business. His small, calculating eyes scanned the room as if he were taking inventory. "Sarah, dear," he said with a false smile, kissing her cheeks with icy formality. "We need to talk." "Of course, Edward. Please sit down." Richard and Frederick, both in their 30s, took the Italian leather armchairs with the ease of those who felt at home. Richard, the elder, had his father's hard eyes and the same tendency to solve problems with intimidation. Frederick was more subtle but no less dangerous. A law graduate from Columbia, he specialized in finding legal loopholes to maximize the family's profits. "We've heard about your new domestic situation," Edward began, choosing his words carefully. "It's very noble of you to help children in need, but they are not children in need," Sarah interrupted coldly. "They are Robert's children." "Alleged children of Robert," Frederick corrected, pulling a folder from his leather briefcase. "There is no concrete proof of these claims." Sarah smiled humorlessly. "There is a DNA test with 99.98% compatibility." The ensuing silence was tense. Edward exchanged a quick glance with his sons. "Even so," Richard interjected, "you're being very impulsive. 3 street kids. Sarah, You don't know their reality. They could have vices, behavioral disorders, violent tendencies. Violent tendencies, Sarah repeated, her voice dangerously low. You're talking about a 13-year-old boy who took care of 2 babies on the street, Richard. The only violence he knows is what the world has inflicted on him. That's what I mean. Edward slammed his fist on the table. They come from a completely different environment. They don't know how to behave in society. They will bring trouble to the family name. And what trouble would that be? Sarah, Frederick leaned forward, adopting the conciliatory tone he used in court. Let's be practical. You are 42, you've never been a mother. You are clearly going through some kind of emotional crisis after Robert's death. Be careful, Sarah warned. And now, suddenly, you decide to adopt 3 children of dubious origin. That raises questions about your ability to make rational decisions. Questions for whom? For the company's board of directors, for example. For the shareholders. He paused dramatically. For the competent authorities who oversee the welfare of minors. The threat was clear. They would question her mental health, both at the company and in the adoption process. Besides, Edward continued, these children will inherit a fortune they don't know how to manage. Have you thought about what will happen when they grow up? They will squander everything Robert and I built over decades. They will receive the best education money can buy. Education doesn't change one's origins, Richard said with disdain. He who is born in the gutter dies in the gutter. It's genetics, Sarah. You can put a tuxedo on a monkey, but it's still a monkey. The sentence pierced Sarah like a bullet. The coldness, the absolute prejudice, the dehumanization of 3 innocent children, all said with the casualness of someone discussing the weather. Get out of my house, she said, standing up. Sarah, Edward tried to reason. I said, get out of my house. The voice echoed through the mansion. Upstairs, Alex appeared at the top of the staircase, carrying one of the twins. He had heard the shouting and had come down to see if Sarah was okay. Richard saw the boy and laughed scornfully. Ah, this must be the little prince. So, kid, have you picked out which Ferrari you're going to want when you turn 18? Alex descended the stairs slowly, with Lucy in his arms, his eyes fixed on Richard. There was something in the boy's posture, a quiet dignity that contrasted sharply with the older man's arrogance. I don't know what a Ferrari is, Alex said simply. But I know what it's like to have to choose between buying milk for your sisters or saving money for rent. Do you? The question completely disarmed Richard. For a moment, the 35-year-old man was confronted by the brutal honesty of a child who knew life in a way he never would. Alex, Sarah said softly, take Lucy upstairs. These gentlemen were just leaving. This isn't over, Edward threatened, heading for the door. We are going to stop this madness, Sarah. For you, for the company, for Robert's memory. For Robert's memory, Sarah laughed bitterly. You want to bury the only real thing he left in this world? The only pieces of him that are still breathing? You will regret this, Frederick said finally. When you find out who these children really are, when they show their true nature, you will regret it. After they left, Sarah sat heavily on the sofa, trembling with rage and shock. Alex came back down, now without Lucy. Are they going to try to separate us? He asked bluntly. Sarah looked at the boy, thin but no longer emaciated, clean, but still with the marks on his face of one who has grown up too fast. In his eyes, she saw determination and fear in equal measure. They will try, she admitted, but they will not succeed. How can you be so sure? Because, Sarah stood up, all her cool elegance returning to her bearing, they don't know who they're dealing with. I built an empire in a world dominated by men like them. I'm not going to back down now. Alex smiled, the first genuine smile since the Jennings arrival. Are we going to fight together? We are going to fight together. But as she hugged the boy, Sarah knew that the real battle had only just begun. Edward Jennings was not a man to accept defeat easily, and she was sure he would come back with heavy artillery. The war for the family she never knew she wanted was officially declared. The lawsuit was filed on a Monday morning at the New York County Supreme Court. Sarah found out from her lawyer, Mr. Torres, who called with the tense voice of someone bearing bad news. They've filed a petition for conservatorship, Sarah. They're alleging that you are mentally unfit to make decisions about your estate and the guardianship of minors. Sarah closed her eyes, sitting in her office at the construction company. From the 20th floor window, New York stretched out like a sea of concrete and ambition. What kind of evidence have they presented? Reports from psychologists who have never examined you, based solely on behavioral observations. Testimonies from company employees claiming you've been unstable since Robert's death, And he hesitated. And they've hired Dr. Fabio Meneses to conduct a psychiatric evaluation. Sarah felt her blood run cold. Dr. Meneses was notorious for his compliant reports for the highest bidder. Half of New York's high-profile divorces went through him. How much time do we have? 2 weeks to respond. But Sarah, there's more. They've leaked the story to the press. The next day, the headline in the New York Times read, "Millionaire widow adopts husband's secret children with Bronx school teacher." The article, clearly fed by sources close to the Jennings family, painted Sarah as a woman in crisis who had been manipulated by shrewd children. Sources close to the family, the text read, report concern for the businesswoman's mental state, who allegedly made the decision impulsively after finding the children begging on the street. Sarah's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, society columnists, even television shows wanted her side of the story. She refused to speak to any of them. Alex, arriving home from the Dalton school that afternoon, had a serious face and red marks on his uniform. "What happened?" Sarah asked, examining the scratches on his arms. "Some kids at school saw the article. They said I'm a gold digger, that I'm pretending to be your son to steal your inheritance." "And what did you do?" "I hit them," Alex said simply. "I couldn't let them say that about you." Sarah's heart ached. "Alex, violence doesn't solve anything." "I know, but they were lying. And nobody lies about my family. My family." The words resonated in Sarah's mind. Even under attack, even being questioned by his classmates, Alex defended her with the loyalty of a true son. On Friday, the situation worsened. A local news program ran a special report on the case. They interviewed Edward Jennings, who presented himself as a concerned uncle. "Sarah has always been a strong, determined woman," he told the anchor, "but Robert's death affected her deeply. She spent years in treatment to get pregnant, and I think finding these children, well, it awakened a maternal instinct she was repressing. It's understandable, but it's not rational." "And what is the family's concern?" the journalist asked. "These children come from a very different background. The boy has already been in fights at school. The babies may have developmental issues from their life on the street. Sarah is not prepared to handle this, and in the end it's the children who will suffer." The interview aired during prime time, seen by millions of New Yorkers. Edward had successfully flipped the narrative, from greedy uncle to concerned relative, from Sarah as a protective mother to an unstable woman. "We have to fight back," Mr. Torres said at the emergency meeting on Saturday. "Staying silent is letting them control the narrative." "I don't want to expose the children," Sarah protested. "Then let's expose the truth about Robert." Sarah hesitated. Making Robert's affair public, the letters, the double life, it would be humiliating for her and would destroy her late husband's image. "Do whatever is necessary," she finally said. On Monday, Mr. Torres called a press conference at the company's headquarters. The boardroom was packed with journalists, cameras, and photographers. Sarah walked in wearing a black Chanel suit, her hair in a flawless bun, every trace of vulnerability carefully hidden behind her corporate mask. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Torres began, "we are here to clarify facts that have been distorted by the media. Mrs. Sarah Jennings did not find some children on the street. She found the children of her late husband." A murmur went through the room. "Mr. Torres placed Robert's letters on a table, along with the DNA reports. Robert Jennings maintained a long-term relationship with Adriana Evans, a public school teacher. From that relationship, 3 children were born: Alex, Lucy, and Sophie. Here is the proof. Personal correspondence and a DNA analysis with 99.98% compatibility. The questions came like bullets. "Why did you decide to adopt the children?" "Because they are family," Sarah answered, her voice firm. "They are the only children Robert ever had. They deserve to know their father's heritage and to grow up with dignity. The Jennings family claims you are not mentally fit for this decision." "The Jennings family," Sarah interrupted, "is more concerned with the estate than with the well-being of 3 orphans. They would rather Robert's children starve on the street than accept that they exist." "But what about the social difference? Can these children adapt?" Sarah thought of Alex defending her at school, of the twins smiling when she came home, of how the mansion finally felt alive. "Love has no social class," she said simply, "and a family is built with affection, not a bank account." The press conference made national news. The papers were divided. Some painted Sarah as a brave woman breaking down prejudices, others as a rich widow trying to buy a family. But public opinion began to shift. Social media was filled with messages of support. Teachers from the school where Adriana worked gave interviews talking about her character. Neighbors from the Bronx confirmed how well Alex cared for his sisters. "You've become a symbol," Mr. Torres said on Thursday. "Half of America's on your side, and the other half thinks you're crazy." Sarah laughed, the first genuine laugh in weeks. "Maybe I am a little crazy, but some things are worth going crazy for." On Friday, Alex came home from school with news. "The boys who fought with me apologized, and my English teacher said my essay on family was the best in the class." "What did you write?" "That family isn't just who you're born with. It's who chooses to stay together even when it's hard." Sarah hugged the boy, realizing that regardless of the legal battle's outcome, she had already won the most important prize. But the war was far from over. The final hearing took place on a sweltering April afternoon at the New York County Supreme Court. Sarah entered the courtroom holding Alex's hand, who wore his best suit, a gift from her for the occasion. The twins had stayed home with Mrs. Davis, under the care of discreet security guards she had hired, after receiving a few anonymous threats. Judge Medina Correa presided, a 60-year-old man known for his impartiality and toughness. To the left sat Edward Jennings and his lawyers. To the right, Sarah and Mr. Torres. "Mrs. Jennings," the judge began, "I have carefully read the entire file. I would like you to explain, in your own words, why you feel it is appropriate to adopt these 3 children." Sarah stood up, feeling the weight of all eyes on her. "Your Honor, these children are not these children. They are Alex, Lucy, and Sophie, the children of my late husband. When I found them, I didn't know about the family connection. I simply saw 3 human beings in need and couldn't ignore them." "And when did you discover the relationship?" "I could have felt betrayed, angry, humiliated, and I did for a while. But looking at them, I realized they were not to blame for Robert's mistakes. They were just children who deserved love and security. The defense alleges that you are emotionally unstable. Your Honor, I have built a company with annual revenues of $300 million. I manage hundreds of employees and multi-million-dollar projects. If that is instability, I wish more entrepreneurs were like me." A murmur of approval went through the audience. Mr. Torres then presented a series of reports. Independent psychological evaluations confirming Sarah's sanity, medical reports showing the children's recovery, and educational assessments demonstrating Alex's academic progress. Alex Jennings, the Dalton School's educational psychologist, wrote in his report, arrived at the school with a significant educational gap, but he demonstrates exceptional intelligence and admirable determination. In 3 months, he has reached the class average in all subjects. Edward's defense tried to counter, "Your Honor, we do not question Mrs. Jennings's good faith, but she has never been a mother. She has no experience dealing with childhood trauma, socio-cultural differences." "With your permission," Alex stood up, surprising everyone. "Alex, sit down," Sarah whispered. "No, Mom, I have to speak." The judge observed the boy with curiosity. "Very well, Alex. What do you have to say?" Alex took a deep breath, finding a courage from a reserve Sarah didn't know he possessed. "Your Honor, I took care of my sisters on the street for months. I know what it's like to be scared, to be hungry, to have nowhere to sleep. And I know the difference between someone who truly wants to help and someone who just says nice things." "And what is the difference?" "Someone who truly wants to help doesn't ask if it's worth it. They just help." "Sarah, my mom didn't stop to think if it would be hard, if it would be a lot of work, if we deserved it. She just took us home. And are you happy there? For the first time in my life, I sleep through the night because I know that when I wake up, my sisters will be safe. That's priceless, Your Honor." The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Edward Jennings looked at Alex with an expression that mixed surprise and something akin to respect. "Anything else?" the judge asked. "I just want to say that family isn't just about blood. It's about who stays when everything gets tough." And Sarah stayed. Alex sat down, and Sarah had to discreetly wipe away a tear that insisted on escaping. The judge retired to deliberate. It was the longest 2 hours of Sarah's life. Alex remained silent beside her, his hands clasped together. "Alex? Yeah? Thank you for defending me. Thank you for giving me a family to defend." When Judge Correa returned, his face was unreadable. "I have carefully analyzed all the evidence presented. The DNA test confirms the paternity of the children. Mrs. Jennings's psychological reports attest to her full mental capacity. And most importantly, I have observed today a young man who is eloquent, brave, and clearly well cared for." Sarah held her breath. "Therefore, I grant the petition for adoption. Alex, Lucy, and Sophie are now the legal children of Mrs. Sarah Jennings, with all the rights and duties inherent to that relationship. The explosion of joy was instantaneous. Alex hugged Sarah with the force of someone embracing a new life. Journalists ran for the phones. Photographers fired their flashes. Edward Jennings stood up silently and approached Sarah. "Congratulations," he said simply. "You've won." "No," Sarah replied, looking at Alex. "We won." 3 months later, life had settled into a new normal. Alex was among the top 5 students in his class. Lucy and Sophie were crawling through the mansion's marble hallways, turning the solemn atmosphere into a children's amusement park. Sarah had changed too. The corporate coldness had given way to a warmth that surprised employees and partners. She arrived at the office later, after dropping Alex off at school, and left earlier to help him with his homework. "You're different," James, the driver, commented one afternoon. "Different how?" "More human," Sarah laughed. "That's what being a mother does to you." That night, while helping Alex with a math exercise, she realized how much the house had changed. Where silence once reigned, there were now laughter, conversations, the music of the girls playing in their room. "Sarah?" Alex said, putting down his pencil. "Yes. Sometimes I dream about the life we had before. On the street, you know, and I wake up afraid that this is all a dream." Sarah pulled the boy in for a hug. "It's not a dream, my son. And even if it were, sometimes good dreams come true. Do you think, Mom, that Adriana would approve of the life we have now?" Sarah thought of the woman she had only known through letters, the teacher who had loved Robert without destroying his marriage, the mother who had raised Alex to be the upstanding young man he was becoming. "I'm sure she would. I think she always knew you deserved more than what life could offer you then. And Dad, Robert, your father made mistakes, Alex. But I've learned one thing. The love he felt for you was real. And now you have the chance to honor both his memory and your mother's." Alex smiled and returned to his math exercises. Sarah watched him for a moment, focused, determined, growing with each passing day. Outside, New York throbbed with its millions of inhabitants, its social problems, its injustices. But inside, in that house that once echoed with emptiness, a family had been born from love, from choice, and from the courage to believe that everyone deserves a second chance. The journey was far from over, but Sarah knew she had made the right decision. Her life at last had meaning. 6 months after the victory in court, Sarah announced the creation of the Adriana Evans Foundation, an organization dedicated to supporting vulnerable children through education. The launch ceremony took place in the elegant ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, bringing together New York's business elite, political figures, and representatives of social organizations. Alex, now 14 and visibly taller and more self-assured, took the stage in a flawless tuxedo. His manners had been refined through the etiquette classes Sarah had insisted on, but the essence of the brave boy she found in the rain remained intact. "Good evening," he began, his firm voice echoing in the silent hall. "My name is Alex Jennings, and a year ago I was homeless." A murmur rippled through the audience. Sarah, sitting in the front row with Lucy and Sophie on her lap, smiled encouragingly. "I know that most of you have never been truly hungry. You've never had to choose between buying medicine or paying rent. You've never woken up not knowing where you would sleep the next night." The audience was captivated. Alex had rehearsed the speech, but now he was speaking from the heart. "My birth mother, Adriana Evans, was a teacher. She earned about $55,000 a year, and with that she raised 3 children, taught me to read, to be honest, to never give up. When she died, I thought our dreams had died with her." He paused, finding Sarah's eyes in the crowd. "But I was wrong. Dreams don't die. They just wait for the right person to help them be reborn. The Adriana Evans Foundation will do for other children what Sarah did for me. Show that where you are born does not determine how far you can go." The applause was thunderous and prolonged. Businessmen accustomed to cynicism found themselves genuinely moved by the teenager's raw honesty. Sarah took the stage, hugging Alex before speaking. "The Adriana Evans Foundation is not charity," she declared. "It is justice. It is recognizing that there are thousands of children like Alex, smart, determined, capable, who just need a chance." The project was ambitious. Full scholarships to private schools, psychological counseling, nutritional and medical support, and a mentorship program with volunteer entrepreneurs. The initial budget of $50 million would be funded by Jennings Construction and donations from business partners. "But we don't just want to lift children out of poverty," Sarah continued. "We want them to return to their communities as leaders, as agents of change. We want to create a virtuous cycle where those who receive help learn to help others. After the ceremony, journalists surrounded Alex for interviews. The boy, who a year earlier could barely form complete sentences due to shyness and malnutrition, now answered questions with the poise of someone twice his age. "What was the transition like from the street to this world?" a journalist from a major network asked. "It was hard at first," Alex admitted. "I didn't know how to use all the silverware at dinner. I didn't know words the other kids at school used. But Sarah, my mom, never made me feel stupid or different. She said I was learning, not that I was behind." "And your sisters?" Alex smiled, the first completely carefree smile Sarah had seen him give. "Lucy and Sophie don't even remember the life before. For them, there has always been a pink room full of toys, always food in the fridge, always Sarah singing them to sleep. That's how it should be." "Do you feel any resentment for losing the first years of your life?" Alex thought carefully before answering. "No. Those years taught me to value what I have now. They taught me that family isn't just who shares your blood, it's who is willing to share their life with you." The story was the cover of the New York Times magazine the following week. The boy who became a prince. The photo showed Alex on stage at the plaza, in a tuxedo, but with eyes that still held the determination forged on the streets. The foundation's impact was immediate. In 2 weeks, more than 500 children had enrolled in the pilot program. Sarah and her team spent weeks conducting interviews, visiting families, and learning about heartbreaking stories. "It's impressive," Mr. Torres commented during a meeting at the company. "You've created the largest corporate social inclusion program in the country." "Alex created it," Sarah corrected. "I just provided the resources." 3 months later, the first 50 beneficiaries of the Adriana Foundation began their classes at Dalton, Trinity, and other elite New York schools. The project had such an impact that other companies began developing similar programs. Alex became an informal ambassador for the project, visiting public schools and speaking about his experience. His story spread on social media, inspiring not only other young people in similar situations, but also business leaders who began to question their social role. "You've become a symbol," Sarah told him one night, as they reviewed a foundation report together. "I don't want to be a symbol," replied Alex, now 15 and with a maturity that impressed everyone. "I want to be an example. Symbols are to be admired from afar. Examples are to be followed." "And what example do you want to set?" "That it doesn't matter where you're born, it matters who you choose to be, and that those who have been lucky enough to be helped have an obligation to help others." Sarah looked at the young man Alex was becoming. Tall, elegant, fluent in English, with grades that placed him among the top students in his class. But more importantly, a solid character, genuine empathy, and the determination to use his privileges for good. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" she asked him. "I want to study law, be a prosecutor, defend children like I was. I want to be the voice for the voiceless." "And your sisters, what future do you imagine for them?" Alex smiled, his gaze softening. "Whatever they want. Doctors, engineers, teachers like Mom Adriana, businesswomen like you, or just happy mothers. The important thing is that they have the choice." That night, Sarah went to bed with a sense of fulfillment she hadn't experienced in years. The Adriana Foundation was already changing lives. Alex was preparing for a brilliant future, and the twins were growing up healthy and loved. But more than that, she had discovered her purpose, not just as a successful businesswoman, but as someone capable of transforming lives and, in the process, transforming herself. Robert's legacy, his lies, his secrets, his absence, had paradoxically become the source of the greatest joy in her life. Adriana would have been proud. The FDR drive was congested as usual on that Thursday afternoon, but Sarah didn't mind. She looked out the Range Rover window at the same median where she had found Alex and the twins 3 years earlier, remembering that rainy day that had changed her life forever. "Miss Jennings?" James asked from the rearview mirror. "Do you want me to pull over on the median?" "No need, I was just reminiscing." It was strange to think how much everything had changed. Alex, now 16, was preparing for the SATs to get into law school at Columbia, with grades that placed him among the most promising candidates. Lucy and Sophie, at 3.5, attended the most prestigious bilingual school in New York and spoke English, Spanish, and French with the ease of those born into privilege. But it was the transformation in herself that surprised her the most. The cold, calculating woman who had built a business empire alone had discovered that her greatest achievement was not professional, but personal. "We've arrived, Miss Jennings," James announced. stopping in front of the New York County Supreme Court. Today was a special day. Alex had asked to do something he had been planning for a long time, an official tribute to the memory of Adriana Evans. The mayor of New York, moved by the foundation's story and its social impact, had agreed to name a newly built school in the Bronx after Adriana. The ceremony brought together hundreds of people, teachers from the school where Adriana worked, former students who remembered her fondly, foundation beneficiaries, political figures, and the press. But for Sarah, the most important people there were Alex and the twins. Alex took the stage in the same suit he had worn for his first public appearance, but now it fit him perfectly. At 16, he had become an elegant and eloquent young man, with a presence that commanded natural respect. Adriana Evans, he began, looking at the plaque they were about to unveil, was more than my biological mother. She was the woman who taught me that education is the one inheritance no one can take from you. Sarah felt her eyes well up with tears, something that rarely happened to her in public, but had become more frequent since she became a mother. She worked 10 hours a day for little more than minimum wage. She could have become bitter, resentful, hopeless. Instead, she chose to believe that every child who passed through her classroom could have a better future than her own. The audience listened in respectful silence. Alex had become a natural speaker, capable of moving crowds with his sincerity. When I lived on the street with my sisters, I often thought about giving up. It was easier to accept that we were born poor and would die poor. But then I would remember my mother's voice telling me, "Alex, you're smart. You can be whatever you want to be." And I chose to believe her. He paused, finding Sarah in the audience. Today, 3 years later, I am here to say, she was right. And the proof is not just me. It's the 250 young people the Adriana Evans Foundation has already lifted out of poverty. It's the schools being built in her name. It's the fact that the name of a teacher from the Bronx is now engraved in marble at a public school. The applause was long and emotional. Sarah took the stage for the official speech, but her words were brief and direct. Adriana Evans died too young, leaving 3 small children, but her legacy is alive in every child who now has access to education thanks to the foundation that bears her name. In every young person who chooses to study instead of giving up, in every family that believes in a better future. She looked at Alex, who was holding Lucy while Sophie slept in Mrs. Davis's arms. Adriana taught me something I didn't know I needed to learn, that family is built with love, that motherhood has no age, and that the best inheritances are those that benefit not only our children, but all children. After the ceremony, the family went to dinner at Per Se. It was a tradition they had created, celebrating important moments with a special meal together. "Alex," Sarah said while cutting Lucy's steak, "I'm so proud of your speech today. Thanks. And thank you for everything, for making this happen. You made it possible. I just supported you." "You know what's the funniest thing?" Alex said, smiling. "Sometimes I forget it wasn't always like this. I wake up in my room in the morning, see the girls playing in the garden, you drinking coffee and reading the paper, and it feels like it's always been this way. And that's how it should be. Yeah. But sometimes I remember the street and I think, what if you hadn't stopped that day? What if you had just driven by like everyone else?" Sarah put down her fork, thinking about the question. "You know, Alex, I drove by many similar situations throughout my life. I saw beggars, street kids, entire families sleeping on the sidewalk, and I always found an excuse not to get involved. It's dangerous. It could be a scam. It's not my responsibility. So why was it different with us? Because you had Robert's eyes." And for a moment it felt like a sign from fate. And was it? Sarah looked at the twins, now 3.5, speaking 3 languages and dreaming of being doctors like Alex's doctor auntie. She looked at Alex, about to enter university on a merit scholarship. She looked at the life they had built together. It was, she said simply. It definitely was. That night, as she tucked the twins in, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 3 years ago, she was a rich but empty woman, successful but lonely, respected but not loved. Now she was a mother, and she had discovered that was the only title that truly mattered. "Maman Sarah," Lucy called from her bed, using the French she was learning at school. "Oui, ma chérie, je t'aime. I love you too, my love." As she turned off the light, Sarah smiled. Robert had lied to her, hidden an entire family from her, and died, taking his secrets with him. But unintentionally, he had given her the greatest gift of her life, the chance to be a mother, the chance to discover that some inheritances are not measured in money, but in love, and that the best families are the ones we choose, not just the ones we are born into. 2 years had passed since the inauguration of the Adriana Evans School, and Sarah watched from her office window at the construction company as impressive figures about the foundation rolled in. 500 young people had already benefited, with an 87% acceptance rate into public universities, higher than the national average for the upper middle class. Alex, now a freshly turned 18, was a sophomore in law at Columbia, maintaining an academic excellence scholarship and leading the student delegation. Lucy and Sophie, at 5 years old, spoke 4 languages and showed completely different personalities. Lucy was expansive and artistic, while Sophie was introspective and analytical. "Ms. Jennings," her secretary called over the intercom, "young Mr. Alex is here." Sarah smiled. Since Alex had started university, he insisted that employees stop using the diminutive, although at home he was still the same. "Send him in." Alex entered the office with the confident posture he had developed over the years, but Sarah could still see traces of the scared boy she found in the rain 5 years ago. He carried a leather folder and a mysterious smile. "Mom, I have to show you something." "Another A+ in constitutional law?" "Better than that." He opened the folder and pulled out an official document. "My internship appointment at the district attorney's office." Sarah took the paper, reading it carefully. Alex had secured a spot in the state's most competitive internship program, working directly in the juvenile division. "Alex, this is extraordinary. How did you manage it?" "Remember that talk I gave at the university about homeless children? The DA, Dr. Ricardo Meneses, was in the audience. He sought me out afterward and said he wanted someone with real-life experience on his team." Sarah felt a surge of pride. Alex hadn't gotten the position just on academic merit, but because of his personal story, transforming what could have been a disadvantage into a unique distinguishing trait. "And there's more," Alex continued, still smiling. "I want to propose a joint project between the foundation and the DA's office, a program to identify at-risk children before they end up on the streets." "How would it work?" "Partnerships with public schools, health centers, parishes, warning signs, constant truancy, signs of domestic violence, families in extreme poverty. Instead of waiting for children to hit rock bottom, we would intervene sooner." Sarah leaned back in her chair, impressed by the 18-year-old's maturity and systemic vision. "It's ambitious." "What would the budget be?" $200 million annually. I've already done the projections. We can reach about 5,000 children in the first year." "Alex," Sarah said carefully, "that means multiplying the current size of the foundation by 10. Are you sure we're ready?" "Mom, 5 years ago you found me on the street because you waited for me to hit rock bottom. How many children do we not reach in time? How many Alexis are out there right now, holding their baby siblings, waiting for someone who will never stop?" The question struck Sarah to the core. She thought of all the times she had passed by similar situations without acting before that rainy day that changed everything. "You're right. Let's get to work." "Seriously?" "Seriously, but on one condition." "What's that?" "That you take over as executive president of the foundation. It's time for you to start leading officially." Alex was silent for a moment, processing the proposal. "I'm still in college." "So what? You know the problem better than any executive with a master's degree. You've lived through what these young people are going through. That's worth more than any degree. And school? You'll continue studying. But you'll also start applying in practice what you learn in theory." Alex stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. Below, New York boiled with its brutal contrasts. Luxury skyscrapers meters away from humble neighborhoods, Ferraris sharing traffic with carts pushed by can collectors. "You know what's the strangest thing?" he said finally. "Sometimes I look at this city and remember that I was once invisible here, just another street kid that people pretended not to see. And now I want to be the person who sees, who doesn't just walk by, who stops the car and asks, 'Can I help?'" Sarah joined him at the window. "So, do you accept?" "I accept, but I want to do it right. I want the foundation to become a national benchmark. I want that in 10 years, when someone talks about corporate social inclusion, they think of the name Adriana Evans." "Why is that so important to you?" Alex thought before answering. "Because my biological mother lived her whole life as an anonymous public school teacher. No one knew her name. No one valued her work. She died at 28 without seeing the impact she had on her students' lives. And now she has a foundation, a school, hundreds of young people studying because of her. Her name is engraved in marble. She's become immortal. Sarah hugged the young man who had become not only her son, but also her greatest pride. Adriana would be proud of you. I hope so. And I hope Robert would be too. He would be. Despite all his mistakes, he loved you. And seeing the man you've become, it's his redemption too. That afternoon, they officially announced the expansion of the Adriana Evans Foundation and Alex's appointment as executive president. The news made national headlines. The 18-year-old who had come from the streets to lead one of the country's largest social projects. But for Sarah, the most important thing happened that night at the family dinner. Lucy drew a portrait of Alex being an important boss, and Sophie asked if she could now say her brother was president when her friends asked what he did for a living. Yes, Alex replied, smiling. But don't forget, first, I'm your brother. Then I'm president of anything. Sarah watched the scene, the twins competing for Alex's attention, him patiently dividing his time between them, the abundant table, the house full of laughter, and realized she had built something that no amount of money could buy. A family, a real one, and best of all, a family that now dedicated its life to building other families, giving other opportunities, transforming other lives. The cycle had come full circle, and now it was beginning again, multiplied 1,000-fold. Alex's law school graduation took place on a sunny December afternoon at Columbia University. Sarah was in the front row of the auditorium, flanked by Lucy and Sophie, now 7, impeccably dressed for the occasion. At 22, Alex had graduated with honors and already had 3 years of experience as president of the Adriana Evans Foundation, which now served more than 2,000 young people in 15 states. But for Sarah, the most impressive thing was seeing the man he had become, a man of integrity, compassion and determination. Now that you've graduated, Lucy whispered during the ceremony, are you going to stop being our brother and just be a lawyer? Alex, who overheard the question, turned and winked at his sister. Never. Lawyer is a profession. Brother is forever. When his name was called to receive the diploma, the applause was deafening. Alex had become a well-known figure, not only at the university but nationally. His articles on children's rights were academic references, and his lectures on social overcoming filled auditoriums across the country. But it was in his speech as the class representative that Alex moved the audience the most. 9 years ago, he began, looking out at the sea of faces in the auditorium, I was functionally illiterate. I could write my name and read street signs, but I couldn't interpret a simple text. Today I am here graduating from the most prestigious law school in the country. Sarah felt tears well up, as always happened when Alex spoke of his journey. But this is not a story of individual achievement. It's a story about the transformative power of education and unconditional love. Because I didn't get here alone. He found Sarah in the crowd. I got here because a woman decided to stop her car on a rainy afternoon, because she chose to see children where others only saw problems, because she believed that family is built with love, not blood. The applause was spontaneous and prolonged, and I also got here because I carry with me the memory of a teacher named Adriana Evans, who never had a university degree, but taught me that knowledge is power and education is freedom. Alex paused, letting the words resonate in the historic auditorium. Today I receive this diploma not only in my name, but in the name of all the young people the Adriana Evans Foundation has already transformed. In the name of all the children who are still out there, waiting for someone to believe in them. In the name of all who dream of a more just society. After the ceremony, the family gathered for photos in the university courtyard. Lucy and Sophie vied for who would hold Alex's diploma, while Sarah watched the scene with deep satisfaction. Mom, Alex approached, still in his gown. Thank you for everything. For believing in me when I didn't even know it was possible to believe in myself. I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just gave love and an opportunity. Just? Alex laughed. Mum, love and opportunity are the most valuable things in the world. That night, during the celebration dinner at Le Bernardin, Alex made an announcement that surprised Sarah. I want to open a branch of the foundation in the United States. What did you say? I've received an offer from Harvard University. They want me to do a master's in public policy and at the same time develop a pilot project for the foundation in Boston to work with vulnerable Latino immigrants. Sarah fell silent, processing the information. The idea of Alex moving to the United States filled her with pride and fear in equal measure. For how long? 2 years. But Sarah, he used her name as he did when he wanted to have a serious adult conversation. It's not a farewell, it's an expansion. I want to take the Foundation's model to the world, to prove that what we've done here can work anywhere there are children who need opportunities. Sarah looked at the twins, who were drawing on napkins while the adults talked. Lucy was drawing an airplane. She had always dreamed of flying, while Sophie was drawing a family, 5 figures holding hands under a yellow sun. And the girls? How are we going to explain that their brother is moving to another country? They'll understand, and I'll be back for holidays. We'll video chat every day. Besides, Alex smiled mysteriously, I've already talked to them about this. You've talked to them? Lucy, he called. Tell Mum what you said about my trip to study in the United States. The 7-year-old girl looked up from her drawing, serious as an executive. I said that if Alex is going to study more to help more children, then he has to go, because that's what siblings do. They help each other grow, Sophie added without stopping her drawing. And I said I'm going to learn better English, so that when he comes back, we can talk like Americans. Sarah felt a mix of pride and melancholy. Her daughters had grown up in a family where helping others was natural, where personal sacrifices for the common good were valued. So it's decided, she asked. If you approve, the foundation here will continue to run perfectly. We have an excellent team, and when I return, I'll bring back an international experience that can further transform our work. Sarah looked around the table. Alex, determined and mature. Lucy, dreamy and brave. Sophie, analytical and sensitive. The family that fate had placed in her path that rainy afternoon. Approved, she said finally, but on one condition. What's that? That you never forget where you came from, and that you always remember that this is your home. Alex stood up, walked around the table and hugged Sarah tightly. How could I forget? You are the most important thing I have in the world. 3 months later, the whole family was at JFK Airport. Alex was about to board a flight to Boston on a March Thursday, with 2 suitcases, a laptop full of projects, and a heavy heart from the first long separation from his family. Lucy cried, the first time Sarah had seen her cry since she was 5. Sophie maintained her composure, but held Alex's hand as if she could stop him from leaving. It's only 2 years, Alex repeated, more for himself than for his sisters. It will fly by. Promise you'll come back the same? Lucy asked between sobs. I'll come back better, more prepared to take care of you and many more children. And promise you'll call every day? Every day. And I'll send you pictures of everything. The university, the city, new friends. When it was time to board, Alex hugged each of them for a long time. First Sophie, whispering something in her ear that made her smile. Then Lucy, promising to bring her a special gift from every city he visited. Finally, his mother. Thank you, he said simply, for giving me not only a family, but a purpose in life. Thank you for transforming a bitter woman into a fulfilled mother. Take good care of them. Take care of yourself, and remember, family is forever, no matter the distance. As they watched the plane take off from the airport window, Lucy asked, Mom, are you sad? A little, Sarah admitted. But I'm also proud. Alex is going to do something important in the world. And will we do important things too when we're older? Sarah looked at her 2 daughters, Lucy, who already talked about being a pilot to help bring doctors to difficult places, and Sophie, who dreamed of being a doctor for sad children. I'm sure you will. You have the best example possible. That night in the mansion that seemed strangely quiet without Alex, Sarah received her first message from Boston, a photo in his Harvard dorm room, holding a portrait of the family, with the caption, First day away from home. I miss you all already, but determined to make you even prouder. Sarah smiled, putting her phone away. The journey that had begun 9 years ago on a rainy afternoon continued, now expanding beyond the borders of the United States. Her children were ready to conquer the world, and she would always be there as a safe base, a port of arrival, a home. 18 months after Alex's departure to Harvard, Sarah was in her office at the construction company when she received an unexpected video call. On the screen, Alex appeared in the university's public policy lab, accompanied by a young Latina with dark hair and a confident smile. Mom, I want you to meet someone very special, Alex said, beaming. This is Isabella Rodriguez. She's a doctoral candidate in education and, well, she's my girlfriend. Sarah felt a pang of surprise mixed with joy. Alex had mentioned a special friend in previous conversations, but never so officially. It's a pleasure to meet you, Isabella, Sarah said cordially. Alex talks a lot about you. The pleasure is all mine, Miss Jennings, Isabella replied in nearly perfect English, with only a slight accent. Alex has told me your whole story. It's incredibly inspiring. Isabella is helping me with the pilot project here, Alex explained. She has developed an innovative methodology for working with immigrant families. The results have been extraordinary. For the next 20 minutes, Sarah listened fascinated as Alex and Isabella explained the progress of the Adriana Evans Foundation in Boston. They had served 150 Latino families in the first year, with a 95% school enrollment rate and a 40% reduction in domestic violence in the communities served. But the best news, Alex said, his eyes shining with enthusiasm, is that Harvard University wants to formalize our collaboration. They want to create a permanent center for social inclusion studies using our model as a basis. That means that the work will continue even after I return to New York. Isabella will take over coordination here and will maintain a permanent bridge between the two countries. After the video call, Sarah was lost in thought. Alex was clearly in love. She recognized the signs in how he looked at Isabella, in the way they completed each other's sentences. But she was also worried. What if he decided to stay in the United States? What if love took him away from the family for good? Her concerns intensified when, 2 months later, Alex called with an unexpected proposal. "Mom, Isabella wants to meet you all in person, and I wanted her to spend the December holidays in New York." "Of course, sweetie. She'll be very welcome. And there's something else. I'm thinking of asking her to marry me." The silence on the other end of the line lasted long enough for Alex to worry. "Mom, are you there?" "I'm here," Sarah replied, controlling her voice. "That's a big decision, Alex. You've only known each other for a short time." "I know, but she's perfect for me. She has the same values, the same passion for social justice, and she loves the Foundation's work as much as I do. And would she be willing to move to New York? That's the thing. She wants to continue the work in the United States, and I'm thinking of splitting my time between the two countries." Sarah felt her heart sink. The possibility she feared most was coming true. Alex building a life far from home. "Alex, you need to think this through. Your sisters need you. The Foundation in New York needs you. And I need you." The vulnerability in Sarah's voice broke Alex's heart. "Mum, you all will always be my priority, but I also need to build my own life. And Isabella, she's a part of that life now." That night, Sarah spoke with Lucy and Sophie, now 8 and surprisingly mature for their age. "Is Alex getting married?" Lucy asked, unable to hide her excitement. "Maybe. He's in love. And is the girl nice?" Sophie, the other twin, wanted to know. "It seems so. She works in the same field as him, helping children." "Then she's family," Lucy concluded with childhood simplicity. "If she takes care of children like Alex does, she's like us." Sophie, always more analytical, asked the question her mother feared. "Does that mean Alex won't live here anymore?" Sarah, the mother, took a deep breath. "I don't know, honey. People grow up, form their own families. It's natural. But we'll always be his family, right?" Lucy insisted. "Always. Family is forever." In December, Isabella arrived in New York. Sarah met her at the airport, nervous and curious. The 26-year-old was even more beautiful in person. Long black hair, intelligent brown eyes, and a genuine smile that won her over immediately. "Miss Jennings, thank you so much for having me in your home," Isabella said, hugging Sarah warmly. "Call me Sarah. And welcome to both of you." During the ride home, Sarah watched in the rearview mirror how Alex and Isabella interacted. There was a natural intimacy between them, a mutual understanding that went beyond initial passion. They discussed foundation projects with the same excitement other couples discussed movies or trips. The first meeting with the twins was magical. Lucy, always outgoing, bombarded Isabella with questions about the United States, her work, her plans. Sophie, more reserved, watched attentively for a few minutes before approaching. "You speak English very well," she commented shyly. "Thank you. I'm learning because I want to be part of your family," Isabella replied naturally. The answer deeply moved Sarah. Isabella wasn't just visiting, she was genuinely interested in integrating. Over the next few days, Sarah watched Isabella interact with the girls, help Alex plan new projects for the foundation, and adapt to the household routine. She was polite, but not submissive, intelligent, but not arrogant, ambitious, but not selfish. On Christmas Eve, Alex asked to speak with Sarah alone. "Mom, I'm going to ask Isabella to marry me tomorrow in the garden after Christmas lunch." "Are you sure?" "Completely. And I want your blessing." Sarah looked at the 23-year-old man before her, determined, passionate, mature enough to make important decisions. You have my blessing, but you also have my concern. About what? About you living far away. About you distancing yourself from the family. Alex pulled Sarah in for a hug. Mom, listen to me. I could live in China, in Japan, on the moon. You will always be my home base. I will always come home. And Isabella understands that. She wants to be part of our family, not take me away from it. Are you sure? I am. In fact, she has a proposal for you. What proposal? Why don't you ask her yourself? That night, during dinner, Isabella surprised Sarah with an unexpected declaration. Sarah, I want you to know that I would never try to take Alex away from you. This family is the foundation of who he is, and I fell in love with the person you all helped shape. And your professional plans. Are you going to live in the United States? We're thinking of splitting our time. 6 months here, 6 months there. The foundation needs coordination in both countries, and Alex is the best person to be that bridge. Sarah felt immense relief. She wouldn't lose Alex completely. She would just expand her world. And there's one more thing, Isabella continued, blushing slightly. I would love to learn how to be the girl's aunt. If you'll have me. Lucy and Sophie exchanged glances and knowing smiles. They had fully approved of Isabella. Of course we'll have you, Sarah said, feeling tears of joy well up in her eyes. Welcome to the family. The proposal happened exactly as Alex had planned. In the mansion's garden, surrounded by flowering dogwood trees, he knelt before Isabella while Sarah and the twins watched excitedly from the porch. Yes, Isabella shouted before Alex even finished speaking, jumping into his arms. As the lovebirds kissed and the twins applauded, Sarah realized her family was growing again, and this time, not by chance or tragedy, but by love and conscious choice. The story continued to be written one generation at a time. 5 years had passed since Alex and Isabella's wedding, celebrated in an intimate ceremony in the mansion's garden, with the twins as maids of honor and Sarah as the emotional mother of the groom. Now, on a sunny Saturday morning, Sarah watched from her office window a scene that filled her with satisfaction. Alex was playing in the garden with his 2-year-old son, Miguel, while Isabella, 6 months pregnant with their second child, chatted animatedly with Lucy and Sophie. The twins, now 13, had grown into extraordinary young women. Lucy still dreamed of being an aviator, but now spoke of using aviation to bring humanitarian aid to remote places. Sophie wanted to be a pediatrician and was already volunteering at the foundation on Saturday mornings, helping care for the younger children while their parents attended educational talks. The Adriana Evans Foundation had become the largest social inclusion organization in the United States, operating in every state and maintaining international partnerships in 12 countries. More than 15,000 young people had already gone through the program, with a success rate that impressed international bodies. Alex split his time between New York and Boston as promised, coordinating the foundation's global expansion. Grandma Sarah. Miguel ran to the window, using the word he had learned from his aunties Lucy and Sophie. At 2, the boy spoke English, Spanish, and Portuguese with equal fluency, a reflection of the multilingual family he was growing up in. Sarah went down to the garden, where she found Alex organizing toys while Isabella rested on a lounge chair, her hands on her rounded belly. How are you feeling? She asked, kissing her daughter-in-law on the cheek. Good. Tired, but good. This baby is more restless than Miguel. Isabella laughed, speaking the English she had mastered perfectly after 5 years. When will you find out the gender? Next week, Alex replied, sitting on the grass. But it doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl. The important thing is that they're born healthy. And lucky, Lucy added, joining the group. I want another nephew to teach how to play soccer. You barely know how to play soccer, Sophie teased affectionately. Of course I do, and I'll teach him to be a goalie because goalies can use their hands like pilots. Sarah laughed at Lucy's peculiar logic. At 13, she maintained her dreamy, outgoing personality, but had also developed an impressive social conscience. The previous year, she had organized a school supply drive for the foundation's beneficiaries. Mom, Alex said, I have some news for you. Good or bad? Amazing. The UN has contacted us. They want the Adriana Evans Foundation to be an official consultant for developing child protection policies in Latin America. Sarah felt a surge of pride. That means that Mom Adriana's work will influence public policy across the continent. We'll help governments create programs based on our model. And are you going to accept? I already have. But on one condition, the consultancy's headquarters will be here, in New York. I want the world to come to us, not the other way around. Isabella added, we're going to make New York the global reference center for child social inclusion. Sarah leaned back in her garden chair, watching her family gathered. Miguel was playing with building blocks, trying to make a big house for all of us to live in together. Lucy and Sophie were discussing holiday plans, talking about an educational exchange they would do in Europe during the summer. Alex and Isabella were planning the future with the ease of those who have found their purpose in life. You know what's the most impressive thing? Sarah said suddenly. What's that? Alex asked. How everything has fallen into place. Robert had an affair that should have destroyed our family. Instead, it gave me the family I never knew I wanted. Do you think he planned it? Sophie, the ever-analytical twin, asked. Of course not. Robert was many things, but a visionary wasn't one of them. Sarah laughed. But sometimes I think fate has plans we can't see at the moment. Like a story you don't know you're living until it's over, Lucy suggested. Exactly. Alex stood up and knelt beside Sarah's chair. Mum, there's something I've never told you. What is it? That day in the rain, when you stopped the car, I was about to give up. Sarah felt her heart clench. What do you mean about to give up? I was planning to take the girls to a shelter the next day. I couldn't take care of them alone anymore. I was afraid they would die of cold or hunger because of me. Alex, but then you showed up, and it wasn't just that you helped us. It was the way you looked at us like we were real people, not just problems to be solved. Sarah pulled Alex into a hug, feeling tears burn in her eyes. You saved me too, you know. How? I was living on autopilot. Rich, successful, but completely empty. You gave me a purpose. You taught me how to love. You transformed me into the person I should have been all along. Isabella, watching the scene, discreetly wiped her own eyes. In the 5 years she had known the family, she never ceased to be moved by the deep connection between them. Crybaby group, Lucy declared dramatically, though her own eyes were moist. Come here, Miguel, let's have a group hug. The 2-year-old ran to join the family hug, followed by his 2 aunts, Isabella and Sarah. For a moment, in the sunny garden of the Upper East Side mansion, 5 generations embraced. Sarah, the matriarch who chose love over resentment. Alex, the street kid who became a global leader. Isabella, the immigrant who found her chosen family. Lucy and Sophie, the orphans who grew up with all the love in the world. And Miguel, the new generation born into abundance, but raised to give back to the world what he received. Now I want to know one thing, Sophie said when they separated. What do you think Grandma Adriana would think of all this? Everyone was silent for a moment, contemplating the question. I think, Alex said finally, she would be proud to know that the love she planted in me multiplied and reached thousands of other children. And I think she would be happy to know she hasn't been forgotten, Sarah added, that her name now represents hope for so many families. I think, Lucy said with her peculiar wisdom, that she's here with us. Every time we help someone, every time we choose love instead of anger, she's here. That afternoon, the whole family went to visit the Adriana Evans Public School in the Bronx. It was a tradition they had created, to go to the place where it all began, where Adriana planted the first seeds of the future they were all now living. The school was bustling on a Saturday. Foundation extracurricular activities, tutoring sessions, art workshops. Dozens of children ran around the playground, children of families the foundation had helped stabilize. Look at that, Isabella whispered to Sarah, watching a girl of about 8 reading to younger children under a tree. Just like Alex used to do with you two. The cycle continues, Sarah nodded. At the end of the day, as they were heading home in the Saturday afternoon traffic, Miguel fell asleep in the car. Lucy and Sophie were playing a game on a tablet. Isabella was dozing on Alex's shoulder, and Sarah was watching the city through the window. New York stretched endlessly around them, a megalopolis of brutal contrasts, where colossal fortunes coexisted with extreme poverty, where dreams were born and died every minute. But now Sarah saw the city with different eyes. Instead of just seeing problems, she saw opportunities. Instead of just seeing differences, she saw possible bridges. Alex, she said softly. Yeah, thank you for teaching me how to see. See what? That family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about waking up every day and deciding to love even when it's hard. Alex smiled, looking in the rearview mirror at the most important people in his life. Thank you for teaching me that everyone deserves a second chance. And that love multiplies when it's shared. As the Range Rover glided through the streets of the city that had brought them together, Sarah thought about the extraordinary journey that had begun 14 years ago on a rainy afternoon. From a bitter woman and 3 abandoned children, a family had been born that now impacted thousands of lives around the world. Robert had died taking his secrets with him, but he had unintentionally left the greatest gift possible, the opportunity for Sarah to discover that true love is not what we receive, but what we choose to give. And as the sun set over New York, painting the sky in golden hues, Sarah knew that her story, their story, was far from over. It was just multiplying, one transformed life at a time, one act of love at a time, one brave choice at a time, exactly as Adriana would have wanted. The circle was complete, but the story continued, forever.